Everyone. My name is Akash Dullamasi, and in this presentation, I will explore the relationship between organization theory and social power through the work of Heather Haveman. Rather than presenting a simple book review, my goal is to build theoretical bridges between the classical organizational theories we studied throughout the semester and Haveman's contemporary perspective. I will also argue that organizations are not merely structures designed for efficiency, but they are powerful social actors and shape communities, institutions, and human experiences. Whenever we talk about the idea of Heather Haveman, she present the organization's idea very differently. She argues that organizations plays the role of social actors and they actually shape communities. Before diving into the next slides, I wanna explain the roadmap, the navigating bridge of my presentation. So, to guide our discussion, I will begin by explaining why organizations matter in everyday life. I will then revisit the classical foundations of organizational theory. Then we will see how organizational thinking evolved over time. After that, I will discuss Haveman's contribution, focusing on power, change, legitimacy, environment, and educational leadership. And finally, I will conclude with critical and personal reflections by synthesizing all these ideas. And in the end, we will apply all these theories in our educational system and will have a critical reflection of building future of organizational framework. In this slide, we'll see that why organization matters, why actually organizations matter, and this is the intent idea of Heather Haveman that we live through organizations and organizations are the social engines of our life. Let me put it in this way that when we think about organizations, we often imagine buildings, offices, or formal structures. However, Haveman invites us to think much more deeply. She argues that organizations are the fundamental building blocks of modern society. From the moment we are born, our lives are shaped by organizations. We are born in hospitals, educated in schools, governed by state institutions, employed by organizations, and often buried through organizational systems. This idea challenged even my own thinking because it suggests that organizations do not merely serve society. It says that they actively construct social reality. See, schools, churches, hospitals, government influence how people think, behave, and understand the world around them. Here, the ideology of Heather Haveman is explicitly cleared to us that he clearly argues that we are shaped by organizations. In the next slide, we'll see that how classical foundations uh, shapes our lives, and we will see the search for efficiency. To appreciate Haveman's contribution, we must first understand the classical foundations of organizational theory. Frederick Taylor focuses on scientific management and efficiency. Henry Fayol emphasized managerial functions and coordination, whereas Max Weber introduced bureaucracy as a rational system based on rules and authority. Alton Mayo shifted attention toward human relations and the importance of social interactions. Although these theories differ, but they share a common assumptions, and those common assumptions are organizations, rational systems designed to achieve goals efficiently. Their primary concern was coordination, control, and productivity. These theories provided the foundation of modern management, but they often paid less attention to issue of power, legitimacy, and broader social influence. Over time, organizational theory evolved significantly. The classical perspective emphasized efficiency and structure. Human relations scholars highlighted social needs and informal groups. Open systems theorists organized that organizations depend on their environment. Critical scholars focused on power, inequality, and domination. Heather Haveman represents an other important development in this evolution. Rather than viewing organizations simply as structures or systems, she encourages us to see them as social actors. And I think this is the idea that we are discussing from the beginning, from even from the first slide. And this shift expands organizational theory from question of internal management to questions of social influence and institutional power. In the next slide, we'll see the theoretical bridges, classical versus Haveman, and we'll try to mingle our course book with the idea of Heather Haveman. This slide actually represents the central argument of my presentation, and classical organizational theory will see that how classical organizational theory focuses on structure, hierarchy, efficiency, and formal authority. Haveman does not reject these ideas, but she extends them. Many philosophers or many theorists believe that Heather Haveman rejects that idea, but I personally believe that she does not reject those ideas, but she extends them. And she argues that organizations also operate through power, legitimacy, relationships, and social influence. In other words, classical theory helps us understand how organizations function internally, while Haveman helps us understand how organizations influence socially society externally. So this theoretical bridge moves us from asking how organizational designed to asking how do organizations shape social reality. In the next slide, there is a clear picture of power dynamics, the relational wheel, how power dynamics serves as the relational wheel. So one of the most important contributions of contemporary organizational theory is its understanding of power. Traditionally, power was associated with formal authority and hierarchy. However, modern scholars argue that power also emerges from expertise, access to information, control of resources, and social network. Let's say, for example, a teacher may not occupy the highest position in a school hierarchy, but their expertise and relationship may give them significant influence. Likewise, donors, community leaders, and experienced staff members often influenced organizational decisions even without formal authority. Therefore, power is relational rather than purely positional. In this slide, we will see how organizations and environment is a two-way street, and this is also an important slide. We have studied this idea in module 5, and module 5 introduced us the concept of organizational environments. Organizations must adapt to changing social, political, technological, and economic conditions in order to survive. Haveman extends this idea by showing that organizations do not merely respond to environments, but they also shape them. Schools shape communities, media organizations shape public opinions, religious organizations shape values and beliefs. This relationship is therefore dynamic and reciprocal. Organizations influence the environment, and the environment influences organizations, and this is a two-way process, not a one-way process. And in this way, we see that organizations are not passive recipients of pressure. They exist in a state of co-evolution. Um the next slide, we have survival, in which we'll study cultural legitimacy and identity. So always remember that organizational survivors depends on more than efficiency. Organizations also require legitimacy. Legitimacy refers to social acceptance and trust. Culture provides shared values and assumptions, while identity answers the question, who are we as an organization? As a school leader, I see this clearly that Mercy School of Generation survives not only because it teaches students, but because parents trust its mission, values, and identity. In this sense, legitimacy becomes a strategic resource that support organizational survival and growth. In the next slide, we have a change, navigating resistance and interest. We studied this idea in, if I'm right, in module 6 or might 7, and we'll see how it is relates the Hather Haveman, the book I studied during the semester. So let me put it in this way that organizations constantly face change, but change often produces resistance. Many people do not likes change, and you might have experienced, I many time experienced, that so many people are working in our organizations, and those people are change resistance people. They do not easily accept any change, but they often resist to chase change, and resistance is frequently misunderstood as irrational opposition. However, organizational theorists suggest that resistance often reflects legitimate concerns about uncertainty, loss of influence, or threats to established traditions. For example, when schools introduce new technologies such as AI, some teachers may resist because they fear losing familiar practices or professional control. Effective leaders therefore manage not only technical change, but also the human and political dimensions of change. Oh, in this slide, we will see that how it apply in our educational sector, and we'll see the educational leadership and power. The discussion has important implications for educational leadership. Schools are not merely administrative systems, they are complex social organizations influenced by culture, power, legitimacy, and environmental pressures. Educational leaders must therefore balance. structure with flexibility, authority with collaboration, and stability with innovation. And I think leader should take this responsibility, that he should balance structure with flexibility, authority with collaboration, and stability with innovation. Then the success of a school depends not only policies and procedures, but also on relationships, trust, and the ability to navigate competing interests. So, we'll try to sum up our presentation with the last three slides, which is critical reflection, personal reflection, and at the end we will conclude it in a very effective way. So personally, when I see it as when I try to see it through a reflection of critical eyes, I see the most valuable lesson from this presentation is that no single theoretical perspective is sufficient. And then in my personal reflection, while I was reflecting on this book and the course, I realized that my understanding of organization has changed significantly. Before studying organizational theory, I often viewed organizations primarily as structures designed to accomplish tasks. Through Haveman Works, I have come to see organizations as powerful social actors that shape opportunities, identities, and communities. And as a leader of Mercy School of Generations, this perspective has encouraged me to think beyond administration and consider how school influence society and future generations. Uh, in conclusion, this presentation has argued that organizations are much more than formal structures. First, organizations functions as powerful social actor. Secondly, power, legitimacy, and culture are essential for understanding organizational behavior. And then the third, educational leader must understand both efficiency and social influence if they wish to lead effectively. Heather Haveman work depends and deepens and extends classical organizational theory by reminding us that organizations do not simply operate within society, they actively participate in creating the society in which we live. You for listening to this presentation. I hope this presentation has demonstrated how Heather Haveman frameworks help us build meaningful theoretical bridges between classical organizational theory and contemporary understanding of organizational power and influence. Thank you.